What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? Boston Celtics just finishing up a right now 125-99 victory over the Knicks. That final score might change as there's still about a minute left in this game. If you were here the last time I came on, obviously after the last game, those solo pods in which, devastating shit happens are very difficult to do. And I actually wasn't going to go live after this game. And then, Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, and Luke Kornet decide to have legacy games. And it just brought me here. I needed to just come and be part of the community and hopefully have some people hop into the chat here, just talking about all the great things that happened tonight. Alex is in the chat. What's up, Alex? How you doing, my man? I feel awesome after this game tonight. This was one of those games that, test the resolve of the players on the team, test the resolve of the city, of the fan base, and it was just great to see. We really needed it. This has been a tough series, and I don't really know why Luke Kornet decided to have this legacy game that he decided to have. But man, I am all here for it. And Luke Kornet is definitely going to be a big part of game 6 at MSG when the Celtics go back to New York Friday night to take on the Knicks to hopefully force a game 7 back in Boston. All right, everybody. That was a long, cold open. You know what it is. Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What's good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Green with Envy. This is the coach, Greg Manakis, checking in. How you doing? How you living? Boston Celtics take care of business tonight, 127-102 over Jaylen Brunson's flopping ass. And man, was that nice to see, because when that fourth quarter started, we'll get into Jaylen Brown, we'll get to Derrick White, we'll get to Luke Kornet, and everything that happened tonight. But when that fourth quarter started and Jaylen Brunson, for 6 possessions in a row, just decided to flop his way to the free throw line, I was losing my shit. I'm a Brunson fan, honestly. I've always liked his game, but man, was that tough to watch. And it was borderline embarrassing out of Brunson just to be literally trying to flop his team back into the game. I'm not one to talk shit, honestly, but he had me upset when he was doing all that shit. Jaylen Brunson, Alex says in the chat, 6 fouls and 13 minutes in the second half there. So yeah, Jaylen Brunson, good riddance tonight, man. That was a tough watch out of you. Landon, shout out to Landon's crying, laughing emoji. That was killing me, man. Jaylen Brunson's been killing the Celtics, but he was embarrassing tonight. That was like unethical hoops tonight out of Jaylen Brunson. Not a fan tonight, Jaylen Brunson. All right. We got to talk about Jaylen Brown, because some of the breakout videos that we do obviously don't give the full context of the conversations. And our guy Alex made a video where I mentioned how Jaylen Brown, to some degree, has been, quote unquote, riding the coattails of Jayson Tatum. And, out of context, and maybe that wasn't the right choice of words from me. But I think, to some degree, it's true. Tatum has been the superstar who's been carrying the team. Jaylen's been hurt this year. I think a lot of it has to do with Jaylen's knee injury, because obviously last year nobody would say Jaylen Brown was riding the coattails of anybody, right? Eastern Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, two-way force, two-way superstar, giving Luka Doncic hell in the finals. And one thing about Jaylen Brown is when the moment is, it's most serious, when he needs to raise his level, he doesn't do it on offense. He does it by setting the tone on defense. There's so many games I can think back to, but the first one where I really noticed Jaylen kind of coming into his own as that full court defender was a couple of years back in that series where Tatum ended up going crazy in game 6 and game 7 against the Sixers, where James Harden was kind of killing the Celtics. I think it was game 1 where Harden came out and just like busted the Celtics ass without Embiid. And then the next game, Jaylen Brown decided to pick him up full court and really set the tone for the rest of the series. And in this game tonight, it was a little scary there in the first quarter. There were some definitely scary hours. But when Jaylen Brown came out and said, I'm guarding Jalen Brunson's flopping ass tonight, that was one of my favorite moments. Just to see Jaylen and to see his resolve, to see his persistence, to see his grit, to see his how many more words can I use to describe Jaylen Brown's tenacity tonight? It was just so great to see out of a guy that, let's be real, has had a really rough second half of this season. With that knee injury, has not looked like the same guy. And it seems like he's, has been okay kind of taking a back seat and really allowing Tatum to become that MVP level guy, where it wasn't a 1-1A conversation the second half of this season. It was a 1-2 conversation with Derrick White kind of sneaking his way into, is he actually the 2? And we'll get to Derrick White here in a second. But Jaylen Brown is an all-NBA guy. He, as I said, was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP. And his two-way impact tonight was unbelievable to behold. It was inspiring. It set the tone for everybody on the team except Kristaps Porzingis. But Jaylen Brown's stat line tonight, as we do the read the box score thing, 37 minutes, 9 for 17 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. Love the fact that Jaylen did not settle at all. 5 for 8 from the line, his worst free throw shooting game in a while, but didn't matter because he had 8 rebounds, 12 assists, and 2 turnovers. Jaylen Brown has had a really rough time taking care of the basketball in the postseason. And tonight, that was not the case. In the first half, he did, have the fumbles a little bit, especially when he was going to his left hand, and didn't end up hurting the Celtics, thankfully. But to finish the game with 12 assists and to command the game and to have those moments in the fourth quarter, there was one particular moment. It ended up resulting in a missed 3 from Pritchard. But Jaylen Brown got right after he had, I think, had a layup or, had a mid-range, one of many Jaylen Brown shots. He gets the ball on the left wing, right? Peyton Pritchard had just hit a 3-pointer, I think, on the possession before. Jaylen Brown gets the ball in transition, and it's one of those classic, JB is going to shoot a transition 3, and I don't know if that's the right shot in the moment, but you can't blame him for shooting that 3 because the momentum's happening. Very calmly, shot fake, sees Peyton Pritchard pop out to the top, passes the ball out to the top for a wide open Pritchard 3. He misses it, but that was the type of game that Jaylen Brown played tonight, and it was very different from the last game that Jaylen Brown played in game 4, because that was honestly one of the worst games of Jaylen Brown's playoff career. In my opinion, it was really a rough watch. And for him to make plays like that and to have the offense run through him, that alley-oop off the pick and roll to Luke Kornet, where Luke just came in and yammed it backwards, one of his great plays. Then he goes, they go double wide pin down for Derrick White, or maybe it was for Holiday, and White slips out of it. Backdoor cut, fires a pass in for a layup. He's waiting for that. He's got OG Anunoby, and this is what the Celtics went to at the end of the game, right? It was Jaylen Brown high pick and roll, or Jaylen Brown holding the ball against Anunoby while there's some action on the weak side. And he just kept making the right play after right play, and it was just really impressive maestroing from Jaylen Brown, and it was really nice to see. All right, let's get to the chat here. We got a couple comments here in the chat. Luis Reyes says, I'm just glad we won at home. That's right, Luis. I agree, man. We needed that. And that was crazy. I didn't even know that stat that the broadcast called out, that this is 17 straight home games that Jayson Tatum, and maybe I misheard the stat, but it sounded like 17 straight home games in which Jayson Tatum hasn't played, in which the Celtics have won the game, which is absolutely unbelievable. What a stat. It shows to the rest of the team and how deep the Celtics actually are. We got a comment from Andrew Gibson. Shout out to Andrew Gibson. Staying alive, double exclamation point. We could probably put about 10 more exclamation points after that one. Yeah, but Jaylen Brown was just, this was one of his legacy games, right? We talk about legacy games. And even if the Celtics don't come back and win this series, he had so many moments that were just hyping up the crowd. That one play, I mean, the Jaylen Brown play of this game was a defensive play, right? Jalen Brunson doing all of his bullshit comes on the right side of the court. Jaylen, as he's so good anticipating somebody trying to drive by just on a hard first step, kind of olays him, knocks the ball seemingly out of bounds. And then I don't know how Jaylen Brown was able to get to that ball and save it to lead to a fast break. But he just steps 1 foot, full Marcus Smart Superman, hits the ball back in bounds. And that just like, oh man, that fired me up so much as a fan. I jumped off my couch. I was like, fuck yeah, JB, let's go, baby. Right. And it was just like one of those games that you could see Jaylen Brown channeling the energy of the Garden, channeling the energy of everybody watching from home. It was unbelievable to see Jaylen Brown play at that level. Let's see. Alex has JB with a plus 28 on the game. Mr. J Will, Knicks had 40 free throws and we won by 20. But they have under 40% field goals. What do we do with this into the next game? I'll get to that in a second. We got a comment here from Andrew Gibson, always bleeding green from West Virginia. Let's go. Yeah, this is, Mr. J Will, the fact that the Knicks had 40 free throw attempts, I wonder how many of those were in the fourth quarter when Jalen Brunson and his flopping ass decided to flop his way to free throw attempts. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, right, you got a few things that are definitely out of the norm. This is a perfect Mitchell Robinson game, 6 for 6 from the free throw line, 13 rebounds. Luke Kornet outplayed Mitchell Robinson and Karl Towns tonight. Luke Kornet was the best big man on the court. We'll get to that in a second. They got 5 threes out of Josh Hart in this game. And as you said, 40 free throw attempts, 32 out of 40. But they only go 12 for 30 from 3. And, one guy, obviously Brunson wasn't able to have the same impact he normally has, the foul trouble in the second half. And just, Jaylen Brown all up in his jersey. But Mikal Bridges, 4 for 14 in this game. And in the fourth quarter, well, one adjustment that Missoula did make was he put Pritchard on Bridges. And if you know anything about Peyton Pritchard, he's probably the best screen navigator on this team. Right. He pound for pound, his ability to fight through screens is probably his best skill as a defender. And if you think about the last couple of fourth quarters that Mikal Bridges got off, think about what action he went to. Right. A lot of it was high pick and roll, coming to his right hand, getting to his spot, 15-foot fall away. But if you're able to disrupt that initial dribble off the high pick and roll, then don't let him get space where you're kind of at his mercy, where he can fade, he can kind of go into you or fade backwards off that foot, and you don't know which direction he's going to fade. It takes up his space, and he's a rhythm player, much like Jayson Tatum. Like when he gets into his bag, if you just like kind of disrupt his rhythm, he's not quite the same guy. Mikal Bridges, obviously much less version of that, but it's the same concept, right? If you disrupt his rhythm and you don't allow him to get to basically what comes down to practice shots for Mikal Bridges, it does a lot. So you got to give a huge shout out to Joe Mazzulla, who's had a bad series, to make that adjustment, putting Peyton Pritchard on him, and then obviously give Peyton Pritchard the props for actually playing that great defense in that one. And then I'm trying to think, Miles McBride hits 3 for 6 from 3. Maybe you don't get that. I'm just trying to think of ways that the Celtics can still get this to a game 7. One thing I did want to talk about was the fourth quarter and the difference in the offense in this game. And I would never say the Boston Celtics are better without Jayson Tatum. That's not the truth. But the way that they ran their offense in the fourth quarter is how they should always run their offense in the fourth quarter, right? Where they don't just rely on one guy or two guys to go ISO and dribble out the clock, right? That's what has driven Celtics fans crazy for the last 6 years, is that's what they've done. In crunch time, they just sit there and they dribble the clock out when they have big leads, and that's why they blow leads. And tonight, from the beginning of this game, they didn't really go killer whale offense because they were missing the leader of the pack, right? They didn't have Jayson Tatum to be able to attack every mismatch, and they didn't go hunting that. Instead, they did a great job of getting out early of screens, right? Trusting the extra pass. If they, anytime with Tatum, when they bring somebody up into a high pick and roll, he'll get the switch and then he'll get into his bag, right? Today, what they decided to do, anytime they got somebody up into a switch, the ball was out quickly. Derrick White, ghost screen, that action that is so perfect for Derrick White. We got so many opportunities for him, right? We got opportunities for Drew Holiday. The amount that the ball was moving in the second half, we ran a 2-man empty side pick and roll with Sam Hauser and Drew Holiday inverted, where Sam Hauser was the ball handler and Drew Holiday was the screener. And we got a wide open layup out of that. Like, we have not seen action like that. When Jayson Tatum's on the court, other guys don't get the opportunity to make plays because he's our best player, and you put the ball in his hands and you trust that he's going to make the right play over and over. And that's why we won a championship last year, is because Tatum played point guard, right? And he was unbelievable. But in this series, we have not played a good fourth quarter offense, and Tatum wasn't doing a good job getting us into good offense in the fourth quarter. And this was a game in which Jaylen Brown did a phenomenal job. And then the rest of the guys, seeing, we don't have Jayson Tatum to rely on, we're going to need to step up. We're all going to need to trust each other. We're going to need to make the extra pass. We're going to have to screen, cut, double wide pin downs over here, empty side 2-man action over here, high pick and roll, Spain action, pick and pop, all the stuff that we love when the Celtics do. They got into all of their offensive bag, and the Knicks were looking around like, what the hell is this? We haven't seen this offense out of the Celtics all series. And that was just really special to see out of all those guys stepping up. We got another comment here in the chat. Okay, so we get a comment. Missoula said Kristaps couldn't breathe. That's why he didn't play in the second half. Man, yeah. I mean, it's tough with Porzingis, right? You don't want to. He's clearly not himself, right? We've seen Kristaps Porzingis when he's at his best, and he's clearly really hurting at this point. He can't breathe. He has an upper respiratory infection. But this is why Missoula's had a bad series. Like, Porzingis, everybody can see he's not that guy, right? I talked about how I think it was with you, Alex, right, where I talked about Wheel of Time and that one character who loses her superpower to channel the one power, and then like you keep assuming that person's going to have the superpower, and when they don't have the superpower, they're a liability and you have to carry them. Kristaps Porzingis has been a 7'3" Sean Bradley in this series, right? That's what he's been. He hasn't been able to do anything on the court, and it's really sad because he's a great player, but he hasn't been great in these playoffs. And Joe Mazzulla just kept trying to find something out of him. And then in the second half, he was like, I can't put Porzingis out there. Apparently he couldn't breathe. So there was a medical reason for that. But there was also a basketball reason for that, is he just wasn't playing good. And Luke Kornet, and this is why I said this a couple podcasts ago, we should just play Luke. Like, if KP is going to be that version of himself, just play Luke. You know what you're going to get from Luke, right? You're going to get someone who sets great screens. He's a positionally sound defender. He brings great energy. He's going to set screens. He's going to roll hard to the basket. He's the one actual lob threat on this team. Like, Luke Kornet is our lob threat, and we haven't had a vertical spacer since Robert Williams, right? Like, KP is not that guy. KP's a pick and pop big. Al Horford's a pick and pop big. Kada is not, he's not ready for that action. So to see Luke Kornet have the impact that he had tonight was unbelievable. And we have to talk about Luke in general tonight. We got a comment here from Jay Slida. He says KP is a -10 in the series, and it feels worse than that, right? It probably feels like a -50. Like, every time he's on the court, I'm just like, what is going on with him? But we have to talk about Luke Kornet. Luke Kornet goes maybe the best game, honestly, I think I've seen any backup big man play, maybe like ever. Like, this was the impact that he had on this game was crazy. 5 for 5 from the field, 9 rebounds, 7 blocks, a steal, and an assist. And he was everywhere. His energy was off the charts. He's doing the dog pound thing. That last block that he had on the Josh Hart 3-pointer, where he's right, and everybody on the team. I need TD Garden. Fingers crossed, we get it back to Game 7. Luke Kornet, anytime he does anything, we get a full on from the dog pound, right, in the crowd. Like, we need TD Garden to be the dog pound, because Luke Kornet deserves all the credit in the world for his performance tonight. Really special stuff out of him. And, there's going to be a lot of conversations in the offseason about what the Celtics do with their roster. And Luke is, with a game like this, there's going to be some team out there that's going to offer him probably too much money for the Celtics to actually match. But I think there's a world in which Luke Kornet, like, the Celtics look at a game like tonight and they figure out other ways to keep Luke at a discounted rate, right? Because he's able to make a real impact. I don't know if he'll ever be a starting center in this league, but he can definitely be a 20 to 25 minute a night guy for 82 games in the playoffs. He had a rough start to these playoffs, but this was really nice to see out of Luke Kornet, and really nice to see out of Joe Mazzulla for trusting him in the biggest moment, right? The Celtics were tied at halftime with the New York Knicks. I think it was 59-59. And then insert Luke Kornet and insert Celtics victory. All right, we got a comment here from Alex. 7 blocks is the 3rd most ever in NBA history off the bench in a playoff game. Yeah, exactly what I said. And Reggie Miller did compare him to Akeem Olajuwon. Probably not as bad as the Tommy Heinsohn comparing Greg Steamsma to Bill Russell, but Luke definitely deserved all of the credit in the world, because he was the best big man on the court tonight in a game that featured Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Karl Towns, and Mitchell Robinson. So shout out to him. All right, other guys that definitely deserve their flowers in this one. Derrick White, another spectacular performance out of him. 39 minutes, 53 seconds a game action tonight. 9 for 16 from the field, 7 for 13 from 3, 9 for 11 from the line. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals, or 3 blocks. Let's see. What did he have? I think 3 blocks in this one. Just great stuff out of D White. The Celtics have gotten really hot shooting out of D White since that first game, where I think he was, what was he like? It was not I don't remember what his stats were at game 1, but I know he didn't shoot well. And he was just chucking threes. But the Knicks, this is, in the preview pod that I did with my buddy, Matt Liptak, who was supposed to come on the pod if the Knicks won and I had the energy to come on the pod. Liptak was supposed to be on the pod tonight, but he texted me at the beginning of the 4th quarter, and he was like, "Hey, let's just do a pod after Game 6. It will be either, a series recap or a Game 7 preview." And I was like, "All right, man, like that feels pretty good to hear that you didn't want to come on the pod tonight." That was pretty fun to get that, because, man, I had a couple people text me after the last pod. My buddy Brett Hazard, who gave us the idea for the total point playoff tracker, and he was like, "Dude, that was maybe the saddest. That was the saddest I think I've ever heard anybody on a podcast." And I did listen back to it, and I was like, "Man, that was some sad shit." And then everything that was going around on the internet, I was like, "Jayson Tatum's hurt. He's not dead." Right? It's the old Gary Bertier from Remember the Titans. "Coach, I'm hurt. I ain't dead." "No, you're not. No, you're not." Right? That was it was that moment. But prayers to JT. Glad he's already done with this surgery. Comment from my guy Will Weir, commenting, I'm assuming also from a hospital. Will and Jayson Tatum chilling, watching this game, Gary Bertier style, from the hospital. Shout out to Will. Will, can't wait to have you back on the pod. Yeah, but let's see. Other guys, we talked about Porzingis, the fact that Mazzulla said he couldn't breathe. That's probably why he didn't play in the second half of Game 1 as well. Man, he got to get that shit figured out. I hope he's okay. Al Horford had a nice night out of Al after being luggage last game. 5 for 7, 2 for 3 from 3, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block, and 1 bully ball. Al Horford, old school, 4 crab dribbles, tossing my elbow and my shoulder into your puny ass chest. Mikal Bridges, little hook shot over his left shoulder. That's the Al Horford that I like to see. Drew Holiday in this one goes 32 minutes, 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, 2 for 5 from the line, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 fouls out of Drew. Like, Drew didn't get a good whistle tonight. Celtics didn't get a good whistle tonight. And we still won by 25 points in this one. That's another thing. Celtics were 17 for 26 from the free throw line. So we survived a Josh Hart 5 3-point game, a Mitchell Robinson 6 for 6 performance from the line, 40 free throws from the Knicks, Jalen Brunson's flopping ass all over the fourth quarter. And we shoot 17 for 26 from the free throw line. And we win the game by 25. Why do you ask? Well, we shot 52% from the field, 44 for 84, 22 for 49 from 3, which is 45%. Let's see. What else? What are some other big numbers here for the Celtics? Turnovers, they end up with 8 turnovers in this one to 27 assists. That's a really nice ratio, about a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio out of them. So our little Torrey Craig cameo. Torrey Craig goes for 3 minutes and 50 seconds, gives Torrey Craig ended up with, let's see, Torrey Craig, 4 rebounds. Is that, wow, great. Shout out to Torrey Craig. I don't remember those 4 rebounds at Torrey Craig, but good for him. Sam Hauser, nice to see him back hitting 2 big threes. Seemed like he tweaked his ankle, but Sam didn't look great in these playoffs. And for him to make an impact in this one, doing his best, Sam Hauser, this is why we pay you $11 million a year impression. Shotgun Sam, he had that thing loaded tonight, and it was nice to see out of him. Peyton Pritchard goes 39 minutes. This is everybody who's been clamoring for more Pritchard minutes, obviously at the expense of Jayson Tatum, but 6 for 17 from the field tonight, 5 for 14 from 3. But that's what we need at Pritchard. When he's on the court, he needs to be shooting that thing, looking for it. Everybody on the court needs to be looking for him, because the Knicks overreact to Peyton Pritchard. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. And as I said, great defense on Mikal Bridges, who was unable to get the space that he got in the fourth quarter in previous games. Okay, so now we look ahead to Game 6 in New York. Will has a comment here. I don't know if you've already put this up there, but Will says, what happens when Drew Holiday scores 14 points? Celtics do not lose. Do you have more stats to back that up, Will? Give me more. So Game 6, Madison Square Garden, Friday night. It's going to be a really tall task for the Celtics to win another game in New York without Jayson Tatum, right? You can excuse the Knicks, Celtics backs against the wall, Game 5, don't have their guy. Everybody on the team, this is a gut check, mirror, look yourself in the mirror game. And this is the defending champions, right? They have pride. They are going to leave it all on the court tonight. And the minutes that the guys put out there, 37 minutes from Jaylen, only 24 minutes from Al, which is a good thing. Looking forward to Game 6. 40 minutes from D. White, 33 minutes from Drew, 40 minutes from Pritchard, only 14 minutes from Sam, so he'll be fresh. Luke, 26 minutes, he'll probably be exhausted, and I'm not expecting another 7-block performance out of Luke Kornet, but he needs to play, right? Porzingis probably should not play in the next game, because you can't just keep giving the Knicks that opportunity to exploit him. He just doesn't have it at all. So if we think forward to Game 6 in New York, Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, Sam Hauser, Luke Kornet. Those are the guys that we're running out there. Is that enough back-to-back games to get it done against the Knicks? This was a blowout. In the preview pod, we talked about how this series was going to come down to, can the Celtics blow out the Knicks? Because in close games, the Knicks have the better closer, right? Now, the Celtics don't even have their closer. They just have to rely on everybody on the roster. And in a close game, I trust Jalen Brunson more than I currently trust the Celtics. However, we haven't seen Jaylen Brown have this opportunity. It's always been Jayson Tatum. We've asked for it at certain times when Tatum, there was that time, remember remember when I forget how long it was, but Tatum hadn't hit like a buzzer beater or like a game winner for like a really long time until this year. But there were some times last year and over the last couple of years where some people were just asking for Jaylen Brown to get the ball. Like, you don't always have to go Jayson Tatum ISO when the game is on the line. And people are asking for Jaylen Brown, myself included, just to get some opportunities. And he got his first real opportunity without Jayson Tatum. Biggest game of Jaylen Brown's life, maybe tonight. Considering the stakes and Jayson Tatum going out with a torn Achilles, and he stepped up with maybe the best overall game I've ever seen Jaylen Brown play. He was spectacular. He looked like he looked like an all NBA guy. He looked like a top 10 guy in the league. Like, that's the Jaylen Brown that we saw tonight. Two-way impact, playmaking, shooting, force, getting to the line, everything. Middies, layups. He was the man tonight. And I hope it's a close game. Well, I hope the Celtics blow out the Knicks. But if it's a close game, I hope Jaylen Brown gets his opportunity, because he had OG Anunoby on him tonight. And Jaylen, the thing about Jaylen, there are certain guys that he's not bothered by, right? OG's not like a Lou Dort type of defender who's just going to be like a fire hydrant that you can't move. He kind of overwhelms you with his length and his strength. And Jaylen's just as long and just as strong as OG, right? And he's given OG tons of problems when OG tries to go up against him, when Jaylen's the primary defender on OG. And I think Jaylen took it really personally tonight to show everybody, and me, one of his biggest fans, that he can accept the challenge of a guy like OG Anunoby guarding him, of a guy like Josh Hart guarding him. And how great was it out of Jaylen Brown to get up in Josh Hart's face, right? When Josh Hart throws that elbow. Josh Hart's always elbowing people on screens. Nice to see Luke just crush him, make him bleed all over TD Garden. That was great to see as well. But JB, he did everything tonight. But back to game 6, right? Starts with Jaylen Brown being able to have, maybe he's not going to have a game like this tonight, but if he can be much better, if what he was in game 4 to what he was in game 5, we just need him to be as close to game 5 as possible and as far away from game 4 as possible, right? I don't really need this AirPod, right? I'm not talking to anybody. But we need Drew Holiday, right, in the next game. He had 14 points tonight, but he hasn't really had his like big offensive game. And we might need a Drew Holiday big offensive game in game 6. Because Derrick White has been carrying the Celtics with his 3-point shooting, right? Another game in which he has more than 5 3-pointers. He had 7 tonight, 7 for 13. You can't expect Derrick White to just continue to knock down 3-pointers at the clip that he is. They're wide open though. So like, that's one thing. Derrick White is just getting wide open 3-pointers. It's going to be driving Knicks fans crazy. I know it's driving Tibbs crazy. Let's see. We got another comment here from Alex. Josh Hart is not shooting 5 for 9 from 3 next game. Focus on the defensive glass. Robinson has killed the C's on the glass. Maybe more Luke minutes will minimize his effect. Yeah. What did Robinson actually do tonight? What was his line? He had 6 offensive rebounds, 13 total rebounds, but he didn't have the same impact, especially in the second half. I thought the Celtics did a really good job boxing him out in the second half. I'd be interested to see how many of those offensive rebounds happened in the second half. Because I thought Luke obviously did a great job, and then Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, everybody was just crashing in the game tonight. It was really good to see. What was the rebounding battle? 54 to 55. Celtics won the rebounding battle, 55 to 54. So another big reason why Celtics pulled this game out and won by 25 points. We'll need a Sam Hauser game. We'll probably need 4 3-pointers out of Sam. We'll need a couple threes out of Al. We'll need Peyton Pritchard. He was, he had 17 points tonight, but he was 6 for 17, 5 for 14, 35%. It's not bad from 3, but maybe we get a 7 3-pointer game out of Pritchard. Torrey Craig's out there again. Maybe he can give us a little bit of something. But there's, I have hope. And after last game, I didn't have any hope. I like many people, were just completely depressed to see Jayson Tatum's season and next season go up in flames. So we needed this. Celtics fans needed this. The Green with Envy podcast needed this. I know my guy Alex needed this because he was very depressed. Alex, you get a haircut? I think Alex got a haircut. Yeah. That's one of those things, man. When you're feeling a little depressed, go out, maybe get some new shoes, get a little haircut, make yourself feel good. If you got a beard, maybe you go like get your beard trimmed or whatever. But this was a game that we all needed. And, I'm very thankful that I have this team at least for one more game. Because things could change drastically in the offseason. So very happy that we got one more game with this team and hopefully two, because I want to see a game 7 back in Boston. All right, everybody. This was fun. I don't know when the next pod is going to be. So I'm actually going to be back in Boston for game 6. And actually, if there's a game 7, I actually might be in Boston. So maybe I'll try and figure out a way to go to that game. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, I'm going back. It's my mom's birthday, my nephew and my niece, their birthdays as well. Happy birthday to Lucas. Happy birthday to Emmy. Uncle Greg coming home with baby James. I'll be back in Boston Friday afternoon. All right, everybody. Signing off. Green with Envy. Peace.